Welcome back to Truth Bombs, where we expose the lies, betrayals, and shocking secrets that people thought they'd never have to face. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a story that will make you question everything you think you know about the person sleeping next to you. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from around the world. I love hearing from our Truth Bombs family. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we drop explosive truth stories like this one every week. Today's story is called Blood and Water, and it's about twin sisters Olivia and Maya who order a fun ancestry DNA kit. But the results shatter their world. They're only half-sisters. Their mother's 26-year-old secret affair is exposed, and now they must decide whether to tell their father that one of his daughters isn't biologically his. A heart-wrenching story about the true meaning of family, the weight of secrets, and whether love can survive devastating truths. Watch as a father grapples with betrayal while discovering that being a parent is about choice, not just genetics. When a DNA test destroys everything you thought you knew about your family, what would you do? You think you've heard stories about cheating before? Trust me, you haven't heard anything like this. So buckle up, Truth Bombs family, because this one is going to leave you questioning every relationship you've ever had. Let's dive in. The DNA test results arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, tucked between a credit card offer and a grocery store circular like any other piece of mail. Olivia Wright had ordered the kit 3 months earlier as a birthday gift for herself and her twin sister Maya, a fun way to explore their family heritage, she'd thought. Something to bond over during their weekly coffee dates. She almost threw the envelope away without opening it, distracted by the chaos of getting ready for work. Her apartment was a disaster zone of legal briefs and takeout containers, the inevitable result of pulling 16-hour days at the law firm. But something about the weight of the envelope made her pause, coffee mug halfway to her lips. The official letterhead made her stomach flutter with anticipation. She'd been secretly hoping they'd discover some exotic ancestry. Maybe they were part Italian, or had distant relatives in Ireland. Maya had been convinced they'd find Native American heritage, pointing to their slightly olive complexion and dark hair as evidence. What Olivia found instead made her sink onto her kitchen counter stool, reading the same paragraph over and over until the words stopped making sense. Based on our analysis, there is a 99.7% probability that Olivia Wright and Maya Wright are half-siblings sharing one biological parent. Half-siblings. Not twins. Not even full sisters. Olivia's hands started shaking so violently she had to set the papers down. 26 years of shared bedrooms, matching Halloween costumes, and finishing each other's sentences. All built on a lie so fundamental it made her question every memory she'd ever trusted. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya, running late for coffee. Order my usual, vanilla latte, extra shot, oat milk. Can't wait to hear about our mysterious European ancestors. Ha ha ha. Olivia stared at the message, her sister's enthusiasm hitting like a physical blow. How do you tell someone that everything they've believed about their identity is wrong? How do you explain that the person they've shared a face with their entire life isn't actually their genetic mirror? She called in sick to work and spent the morning sitting at her kitchen table, reading and rereading the results. The science was clear. They shared approximately 25% of their DNA, consistent with half-siblings or aunt-niece relationships. Given their ages and circumstances, half-siblings was the only logical explanation. But how was it possible? They looked nearly identical. Same dark eyes, same delicate bone structure, same way of tilting their heads when they were thinking. People had been commenting on their resemblance since they were babies. Even their mother, Elena, loved to tell stories about how strangers would stop her on the street to marvel at her beautiful twin daughters. Their mother. Olivia's stomach clenched as the implications hit her. If she and Maya were half-siblings, that meant Elena had been with 2 different men close enough together that she genuinely believed both children belonged to their father, Victor. The coffee shop where they always met felt different when Olivia arrived that afternoon. She'd chosen a corner table away from the windows, somewhere they could have privacy for what was about to be the most difficult conversation of their lives. Maya bounced through the door 20 minutes late, her graphic design portfolio slung over her shoulder and paint smudges on her fingertips, so completely, quintessentially Maya that Olivia's heart ached. Sorry. Maya collapsed into the chair across from her, immediately reaching for the latte Olivia had ordered. Client meeting ran long. This tech startup wants their logo to disrupt the visual paradigm of their industry, she said with air quotes. I swear if one more person asks me to make something pop while simultaneously being understated and elegant, I'm switching careers. Olivia watched her sister's animated gestures, cataloging the similarities and differences she'd never paid attention to before. Maya's nose was slightly more aquiline. Her fingers were longer. Her laugh was pitched a half-tone higher. Earth to live, Maya said, snapping her fingers. You look like someone died. Everything okay? Maya, I need to show you something. Olivia's voice came out strangled, barely above a whisper. Ooh, the DNA results! Maya clapped her hands together. I completely forgot they were coming this week. What did we find out? Are we secret princesses? Do we have a long-lost billionaire relative somewhere? Olivia slid the envelope across the table, unable to meet her sister's eyes. Just read it. Maya's expression shifted from excitement to confusion as she scanned the first page. Olivia watched her sister's face carefully, seeing the exact moment comprehension hit. Maya's skin went ashen, her mouth falling open slightly. This is wrong, Maya said finally, her voice flat. There's been a mistake. Labs mix up samples all the time. I thought so too. I called them this morning. Olivia had spent 45 minutes on the phone with a very patient customer service representative who'd walked her through the testing process in excruciating detail. They triple-check everything. The samples were definitely ours. Maya stared at the papers, her hands trembling. But we're twins. We've always been twins. People tell us we look exactly alike. We do look alike. But Maya... Olivia reached across the table, covering her sister's hand with her own. We're not twins. We're half-sisters. The words hung in the air between them like a physical presence. Around them, the coffee shop continued its normal rhythm, the hiss of the espresso machine, conversations about weekend plans, the clink of ceramic mugs. But their table had become an island of devastating silence. I don't understand, Maya whispered. How is this possible? Mom would have had to be with two different men around the same time, Olivia said gently. Close enough together that she couldn't tell which one was our father when she got pregnant. Maya's face went through a series of expressions: denial, confusion, hurt, and finally, a growing anger that Olivia recognized from their childhood fights. You're saying Mom cheated on Dad? I'm saying Mom was with two different men. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know the circumstances? Maya's voice rose, causing several other customers to glance their way. Olivia, our entire lives are a lie. Everything we thought we knew about our family, about ourselves, it's all bullshit. Keep your voice down, Olivia hissed, but she understood Maya's anger. She'd felt the same rage that morning, pacing her apartment like a caged animal. Maya stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. I need air. I need to think. Maya, wait. But her sister was already walking toward the door, leaving Olivia alone with the DNA results and two untouched coffee cups. That evening, Olivia sat in her car outside their childhood home, trying to summon the courage to go inside. The small ranch house in the suburbs looked exactly the same as it had when they were growing up. Faded blue siding, overgrown rose bushes flanking the front porch. The basketball hoop their father had installed when they were 12, hoping one of them would develop an interest in sports. Their father. Victor Wright had raised them both with the same patient dedication, never showing favoritism, never suggesting that one daughter was different from the other. He'd taught them to ride bikes, helped with homework, walked them both down the aisle at their respective college graduations. If one of them wasn't his biological child, he'd never given any indication that he knew. Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Maya. At Mom and Dad's. We need answers. The front door was unlocked, as always. Elena had never been able to break the small-town habit of leaving doors open, despite living in the city for over 20 years. Olivia found her mother and sister in the kitchen, sitting across from each other at the worn wooden table where they'd eaten thousands of family dinners. Elena looked older than her 58 years, her face drawn with exhaustion. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy, her usually perfect makeup smeared. Maya sat rigidly in her chair, the DNA results spread out between them like evidence in a trial. Sit down, mija, Elena said softly, gesturing to the empty chair next to Maya. Olivia remained standing, crossing her arms over her chest. Is it true? Elena's composure cracked, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes. The simple admission hit harder than Olivia had expected. Some part of her had been hoping for a different explanation. A lab error, a mix-up, anything that would restore the certainty of their family structure. How? Maya's voice was barely audible. Elena was quiet for so long that Olivia wondered if she was going to answer at all. When she finally spoke, her words came out in a rush, as if she'd been holding them back for decades. I was 26. Your father and I had been trying to get pregnant for 2 years with no success. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong, but month after month nothing happened. I was starting to think we'd never have children. She paused, wiping her eyes with a tissue. Victor was working constantly, trying to get his accounting practice off the ground. 60, 70-hour weeks. We barely saw each other. I was lonely and frustrated and starting to wonder if we'd made a mistake getting married so young. Olivia felt a chill of recognition. She'd had similar thoughts about her own long-term relationship, which had ended 6 months earlier when her boyfriend accused her of being married to her job. There was a man at the hospital where I worked, Elaine continued. Dr. Blake Harrison. He was kind to me during a very difficult time. We started having coffee together, talking about our lives, our dreams. It felt innocent at first. But it wasn't innocent, Maya said, her voice sharp with accusation. No, it wasn't. Elena met her daughter's eyes steadily. We had an affair that lasted about 6 weeks. It ended when Victor and I went to marriage counseling and started working on our problems. A month later, I found out I was pregnant. With twins, Olivia said. With twins, Elena confirmed. The timing made sense for Victor to be the father. The affair had ended weeks before. I convinced myself that the pregnancy was a sign that our marriage was meant to be, that working through our problems had been worth it. You never suspected? Maya asked. Elena shook her head. You looked so much alike, even as babies. People commented constantly on how you were clearly Victor's daughters. You had his eyes, his smile. Blake was fair-skinned with light eyes. It never occurred to me that one of you might be his. Which one of us? Olivia's question came out more aggressive than she'd intended. I don't know. Elena's voice broke completely. The DNA test only tells us you're half-sisters, not which father belongs to which daughter. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and Elena's quiet sobbing. Olivia stared at her hands, trying to process the magnitude of what they'd learned. Not only were she and Maya not twins, but they couldn't even know which of them belonged to the man they'd called father their entire lives. Does Dad know? Maya asked. No. Elena's answer was immediate and firm. He's never suspected. To him, you're both his daughters completely. But one of us isn't, Olivia pointed out. Biologically, no. But Victor has been your father in every way that matters for 26 years. That doesn't change because of some test results. It changes everything, Maya said, standing up from the table. Everything about our family, our identity, our relationship with each other. It's all been a lie. Your relationship with each other is real, Elena protested. You've been sisters your entire lives. You've shared everything, supported each other through every challenge. How does knowing you're half-sisters instead of twins change any of that? Maya stared at her mother for a long moment, her face cycling through emotions too complex to name. Because now I'll always wonder which one of us belongs and which one is the mistake. Which one of us Dad would choose if he knew the truth. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving Olivia alone with their mother and the wreckage of their family mythology. She'll come around, Elena said softly. Maya just needs time to process. Olivia wasn't so sure. She knew her sister, their sister, half-sister, whatever she was now. And Maya didn't forgive easily. This wasn't the kind of betrayal you got over with time and perspective. This was the kind that rewrote your entire understanding of yourself. Who is he? Olivia asked. Dr. Harrison. Is he still alive? Elena nodded. He's retired now, but he still lives in the city. He's married, has children of his own. He never knew about the affair resulting in pregnancy. Are you going to tell him? I don't know. That's not my decision to make alone anymore. Elena looked at Olivia with exhausted eyes. What do you want to do? Olivia had been asking herself the same question all day. Part of her wanted to pretend the DNA test had never happened, to go back to their regular coffee dates and sister shopping trips and the comfortable certainty of their shared identity. But another part of her, the lawyer part that demanded truth and evidence, needed to know everything. I want to meet him, she said finally. Olivia, think about what you're asking. This could destroy multiple families. Our family is already destroyed, Mom. At least this way, we'll know the truth. Elena was quiet for a long time, staring out the kitchen window at the backyard where Olivia and Maya had spent countless hours as children. The swing set was still there, rusted but standing, a monument to simpler times when their biggest concerns were scraped knees and who got to be the princess when they played dress-up. If I arrange a meeting, Elena said slowly, you have to promise me something. What? Promise me you won't tell your father until we figure out how to handle this. He doesn't deserve to have his world destroyed because of my mistakes. Olivia thought about Victor. Patient, loving Victor who'd never missed a school play or soccer game, who'd taught them both to drive with endless patience, who still called them every Sunday just to check in. The man who might not be her biological father, but who'd been her dad in every way that mattered. I promise, she said. The next morning, Olivia called Maya 6 times before her sister finally answered. I'm not ready to talk about this, Maya said without preamble. We need to talk about this. Mom is going to arrange a meeting with Dr. Harrison. There was a long pause. I don't want to meet him, Maya. I don't want to meet him, and I don't want to do any more DNA tests to figure out which one of us is the outsider. I want to pretend this never happened. Olivia closed her eyes, understanding her sister's position but unable to accept it. We can't unknow what we know. We can try. What about our relationship? What about us? Another pause. This one even longer. I need space, Liv. I need to figure out how to be around you without wondering if you're my real sister or just someone who happened to grow up in the same house. The line went dead, leaving Olivia staring at her phone in the silence of her apartment. For the first time since reading the DNA results, she started to cry. Not the angry tears of betrayal, but the deep, grieving sobs of someone who'd lost something precious and irreplaceable. Dr. Blake Harrison lived in a modest, Tudor-style house in an older neighborhood across town. Elena had called him the day before, explaining the situation with a directness that Olivia admired. To his credit, he'd agreed to meet immediately, though Elena warned that he'd sounded shaken by the news. Olivia sat in her car outside his house for 10 minutes, building up the courage to knock on the door. She'd spent the morning getting ready with unusual care, changing clothes 3 times before settling on a conservative dress and blazer, something professional but approachable. She wanted to make a good impression, though she wasn't entirely sure why. The man who answered the door was tall and lean, with silver hair and kind brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Olivia could see traces of Maya in his bone structure, the same aquiline nose, the same long fingers. Her heart skipped as she realized she was probably looking at her sister's biological father. "You must be Olivia," he said gently. "Please, come in." His living room was warm and comfortable, filled with family photos and well-worn furniture. Olivia caught glimpses of his life in the details: graduation photos, vacation snapshots, a child's artwork stuck to the refrigerator that was visible from the kitchen doorway. This was a man who'd built a family, raised children, lived a full life completely unaware that he might have daughters he'd never known. "Your mother told me about the DNA results," Dr. Harrison said, settling into an armchair across from the couch where Olivia sat. "I have to say, it was quite a shock." "I can imagine." Olivia studied his face, looking for traces of herself in his features. She found some, the shape of his eyes, the way he held his shoulders, but she also saw similarities to Maya, making it impossible to determine which of them might be his daughter. "I want you to know," he continued, "that if I'd known Elena was pregnant, if I'd had any idea that our relationship had resulted in children, I would have done things differently." "What would you have done differently?" Dr. Harrison was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I would have taken responsibility. I would have been part of your lives if Elena had wanted that. I wouldn't have let you grow up not knowing." Olivia felt an unexpected surge of emotion. "But we did know. We knew our father, Victor Wright. He raised us, loved us, gave us everything we needed." "Of course. And I'm grateful for that. Victor sounds like a wonderful man." "He is." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, 2 strangers connected by possibility and circumstance. "Your mother mentioned that you have a twin sister," Dr. Harrison said. "Maya?" "Half-sister, apparently, and she doesn't want to meet you." "I understand. This is overwhelming for everyone involved." Olivia leaned forward. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you regret it? The affair with my mother?" Dr. Harrison considered the question seriously. "I regret the pain it caused. I regret that Elena felt she had to carry this secret for 26 years. But if it brought you and Maya into the world?" He smiled slightly. "How can I regret something that created 2 remarkable young women?" "You don't know if we're remarkable. You just met me 5 minutes ago." "Your mother told me about you both. Olivia the lawyer fighting for justice, Maya the artist, creating beauty. She's very proud of her daughters." "Her daughters," Olivia repeated. "Not daughter, singular." "Elena loves you both equally. Biology doesn't change that. But it changes everything else." Dr. Harrison leaned back in his chair. "Does it? You've been sisters for 26 years. You've shared a lifetime of experiences. One DNA test doesn't erase that history. But it means one of us doesn't belong to the family we thought we belonged to. Or it means both of you belong to a family that's more complex than you originally understood." Olivia stared at him, struck by the simplicity of his perspective. "You really believe that?" "I have 3 children," Dr. Harrison said. 2 biological, 1 adopted. I can tell you without hesitation that love isn't determined by DNA. Family is about choice, commitment, and daily acts of caring. From what your mother tells me, you and Maya have been choosing each other as sisters every day for 26 years. Maya doesn't see it that way right now. She will. Sisters fight. They get hurt. They need space to process. But they come back to each other eventually. Olivia hoped he was right, but she wasn't sure. Maya could hold grudges with impressive determination, and this was bigger than any fight they'd ever had. "Would you like to see some photos?" Dr. Harrison asked. "Of my other children." Olivia nodded, curious despite herself. He pulled out his phone and showed her pictures of two young adults, a son in his early 20s and a daughter who looked to be around 18. Both had his eyes and build, and Olivia found herself searching for family resemblances she might share with potential half-siblings. "They're beautiful," she said sincerely. "They are. And if the DNA test is accurate, if one of you is my daughter, then they're your half-siblings too." The idea hadn't occurred to Olivia. She'd been so focused on the impact to her relationship with Maya and Victor that she hadn't considered the possibility of gaining new family members. "Have you told them about us?" "Not yet. I wanted to meet you first, understand what you and Maya might want from this situation." "I don't know what I want," Olivia admitted. "This time last week I thought I knew exactly who I was and where I came from. Now everything feels uncertain." "Uncertainty isn't always a bad thing," Dr. Harrison said gently. "Sometimes it means you're about to discover something wonderful you never knew was possible." Olivia left his house with more questions than answers, but also with an unexpected sense of possibility. Dr. Harrison had given her his contact information and invited her to stay in touch, regardless of what future DNA tests might reveal. He'd also asked her to tell Maya that his door was open whenever she was ready. Over the next 2 weeks, Olivia threw herself into work with unusual intensity, staying late at the office and taking on extra cases. Her colleagues noticed the change, but attributed it to her recent breakup, rather than a family crisis she couldn't explain. "How do you tell people that your entire identity is in question?" Maya continued to avoid her calls and texts. Their mother reported that Maya was doing the same to her, effectively cutting off contact with the whole family while she processed the revelation. Olivia understood the impulse, but worried about her sister isolating herself during such a difficult time. On a Friday evening 3 weeks after the DNA results arrived, Olivia found Maya sitting on the steps outside her apartment building. "You look terrible," Maya said without preamble. "Thanks. You look great too." Olivia settled beside her sister on the concrete steps, noting the dark circles under Maya's eyes and the way her clothes hung loose, as if she'd lost weight. "I've been thinking," Maya said. About what you said, about not being able to unknow what we know." Olivia waited, afraid to push and risk sending Maya away again. "I met with Dr. Harrison yesterday," Maya continued. "You did?" Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. "Mom gave me his address. I went over there and basically ambushed the poor man." Maya smiled slightly, the first genuine smile Olivia had seen from her in weeks. He was very gracious about it. "What did you think of him?" "I liked him. He's kind, thoughtful, easy to talk to." Maya paused. "I can see why Mom was attracted to him." "Did he look familiar to you? Did you see yourself in him?" "I saw both of us in him, which doesn't help solve the mystery." Maya turned to look at Olivia directly. "Liv, I've been thinking about this from every possible angle, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. Which is, it doesn't matter." Olivia blinked. "What do you mean it doesn't matter?" "I mean it doesn't matter which one of us is Victor's biological daughter and which one is Dr. Harrison's. We've been sisters for 26 years. We shared a womb, for crying out loud. We learned to walk at the same time, lost our teeth on the same schedule, went through puberty together. We've been there for each other through every major life event." Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. "Some piece of paper saying we share 25% of our DNA instead of 50% doesn't change any of that history. It doesn't change the fact that I know exactly how you like your coffee, or that you know I'm terrified of butterflies, or that we can have entire conversations without saying a word." Olivia felt tears starting to form. "But what about belonging? What about knowing where you come from?" "I come from Mom and Dad's house on Maple Street. I come from family dinners every Sunday and Christmas mornings with too many presents under the tree. I come from having a sister who would do anything for me even when I'm being an idiot and pushing her away. Maya, I don't want to do another DNA test to figure out which father is which. I don't want to split up our family or make Dad question his relationship with either of us. Dr. Harrison seems like a lovely man, and maybe we can get to know him as a friend of the family. But Victor Wright is my father, and you're my sister, and that's not changing. Olivia pulled Maya into a fierce hug, both of them crying now. I missed you so much. I missed you too. I'm sorry I disappeared like that. I just needed time to figure out what this all meant. And what does it mean? Maya pulled back to look at her. It means our family is more complicated than we thought, but it's still our family. It means Mom made some mistakes 26 years ago, but she also gave us each other. And it means we're sisters. Maybe not identical twins, but sisters in every way that actually matters. They sat together for another hour, watching the sun set over the city skyline, both of them finally feeling like they'd found solid ground again. But as the evening grew darker, a new weight settled between them. The knowledge that their conversation was only the beginning of a much more difficult journey. Maya, Olivia said quietly, there's something we need to talk about. What? Dad. Victor. The name felt strange in her mouth now, weighted with uncertainty. We can't keep this from him forever. Maya's body tensed beside her. I told you, I don't want to do the DNA test to figure out which. I'm not talking about the test. I'm talking about telling him the truth, about Mom's affair, about us being half-sisters. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Olivia could hear Maya's breathing change, becoming shallow and rapid. Olivia, no, we can't. It would destroy him. Would it? Or would keeping it secret be worse? Olivia turned to face her sister fully. Think about it, Maya. What if he finds out some other way? What if Dr. Harrison's family does their own DNA testing and makes the connection? What if Mom slips up after carrying this secret for 26 years? Those are a lot of what-ifs. But they're possible. And if Dad finds out we knew and didn't tell him? Olivia's voice trailed off, but they both understood the implications. Maya was quiet for a long time, her fingers tracing patterns on the concrete step. I keep thinking about that time when I was 16 and dented his car. Remember? I hid it for 3 days, convinced that if I could figure out how to fix it without him noticing, everything would be fine. Olivia remembered. Maya had been terrified of disappointing their father, had spent hours researching body shops and trying to calculate how much her part-time job at the ice cream parlor would cover. But when you finally told him, he wasn't angry about the dent, Olivia said softly. He was hurt that you'd felt you couldn't trust him with the truth. Exactly. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. He said the worst part wasn't the accident. It was discovering that I thought so little of his love for me that I believed a dented bumper could change it. They both sat with that memory, understanding its relevance to their current situation with painful clarity. But this is different, Maya said finally. This isn't about a dented car. This is about the foundation of our family. This is about Mom's affair and the possibility that one of us isn't his biological daughter. This could actually change everything. Could it? Olivia challenged. Or would his reaction be the same as it was with the car? Hurt that we didn't trust his love enough to tell him the truth. Maya stood up abruptly, pacing the small landing in front of Olivia's building. I can't lose him, Liv. I can't lose Dad. What if we tell him and he looks at both of us differently? What if he starts analyzing our faces, trying to figure out which one of us is really his? What if it changes how he feels about us? What if it doesn't? Maya stopped pacing, turning to stare at her sister. That's a hell of a gamble. So is keeping it secret. Olivia stood as well, facing Maya directly. Look, I've been thinking about this constantly since we found out, and every scenario I run through in my head ends the same way, with Dad deserving to know the truth about his own life. Even if it destroys him? Even if it hurts him. There's a difference. Olivia's voice gained strength as she found her footing in the argument. Dad raised us to value honesty above everything else. He taught us that trust is the foundation of love, not the other way around. How can we claim to love him while lying to him about something this fundamental? Maya's eyes filled with tears. Because sometimes love means protecting people from truths that will only cause pain. And sometimes love means trusting people enough to let them handle difficult truths. Olivia reached for Maya's hands. Maya, think about who Dad is. Really think about him. When has he ever shown us that his love was conditional? When has he ever made us feel like we had to earn his affection? Never, Maya admitted reluctantly. Never. So why do we think that would change now? Maya pulled her hands free, wrapping her arms around herself. Because this is different. This challenges everything he believes about his marriage, his family, his life. Yes, it does. And doesn't he have the right to make his own decisions about how to handle that challenge? The question hung in the air between them. Olivia could see Maya wrestling with it, her face cycling through emotions: fear, anger, recognition, and finally, a reluctant understanding. I hate that you're right, Maya said finally. I hate being right about this. They stood in silence for several minutes, both of them grappling with the magnitude of what they were contemplating. If we're going to tell him, Maya said slowly, we need to do it together. All three of us. You, me, and Mom. Agreed. And we need to do it soon, before we lose our nerve. This weekend? Maya nodded, though her face was pale with fear. This weekend. Sunday dinner? Olivia felt her stomach clench at the thought of destroying their traditional family gathering with news that would change everything. But Maya was right. It had to be soon, and it had to be together. Should we warn Mom? We should tell her our decision. But Liv... Maya's voice became urgent. We need to promise each other something. What? No matter how Dad reacts, no matter what happens after we tell him, we don't let this destroy our relationship. We're sisters, half-sisters, whatever. We're family. And we stick together no matter what. Olivia felt a surge of love for Maya so strong it took her breath away. Despite everything they'd been through, despite all the uncertainty and pain, Maya was still thinking about protecting their bond. I promise, Olivia said, pulling Maya into a hug. We're family, and we stick together. Even if Dad can't handle the truth? Even then, although I think you're underestimating him. Maya pulled back to look at her. I hope you're right, because if you're wrong, we're about to lose the best father anyone could ask for. Sunday dinner at the Wright House had always been sacred. For 26 years, barring illnesses or emergencies, the family gathered around the dining room table every week to share a meal and catch up on their lives. Elaine would spend hours preparing Victor's favorite pot roast. Maya would bring dessert, and Olivia would arrive with wine and stories from her legal practice. This Sunday felt different from the moment Olivia walked through the front door. The familiar smells of home-cooked food filled the air, but underneath the normalcy, tension crackled like electricity before a storm. Elena had been told about their decision the night before. She'd cried for 20 minutes, pleading with them to reconsider, before finally accepting that the secret had grown too large to contain. She'd spent the morning cooking with frantic energy, as if preparing the perfect meal could somehow cushion the blow they were about to deliver. Victor was in his usual spot in the living room, reading the Sunday paper and half watching a basketball game on mute. He looked up when Olivia entered, his face lighting up with the same warm smile that had greeted her every Sunday for as long as she could remember. "There's my lawyer," he said, folding the paper and standing to give her a hug. How was your week? Any interesting cases? Olivia hugged him back, trying to memorize the feeling of his arms around her, the familiar scent of his aftershave, the way he still called her my lawyer with such obvious pride. In a few hours, this easy affection might be gone forever. It was fine, Dad. Just the usual corporate drama. Maya emerged from the kitchen carrying a chocolate cake that looked like she'd spent hours decorating it. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she managed a smile when Victor turned his attention to her. And there's my artist. That cake is beautiful, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. I tried a new recipe. The three women exchanged glances. Elena from the kitchen doorway, Maya still holding the cake, Olivia standing beside Victor. The weight of what was coming pressed down on all of them like a physical force. Dinner proceeded with forced normalcy. Victor dominated the conversation, as he always did, telling stories about his week and asking questions about their lives. He was in an especially good mood, having closed a significant account at his accounting firm, and his enthusiasm filled the dining room with warmth and laughter. Olivia found herself studying his face throughout the meal, cataloging his expressions and gestures. She could see herself in the way he gestured with his fork when he talked, in the slight dimple that appeared when he smiled. But she could also see Maya in his laugh, in the way he tilted his head when he was thinking. They'd inherited different pieces of him, she realized. Or at least, one of them had inherited pieces, while the other had simply learned to mirror them. The thought made her stomach twist with anxiety. Elena barely touched her food, pushing pot roast around her plate while contributing nothing to the conversation, except nervous smiles and occasional murmurs of agreement. Maya was doing slightly better, managing to engage with Victor's stories, but Olivia could see the strain in her sister's posture, the way she kept glancing at the clock on the wall. By the time Elena brought out coffee and Maya's cake, the tension had become almost unbearable. Victor seemed to sense that something was off, his cheerful chatter gradually fading as he noticed the women's subdued energy. "Is everything all right?" he asked as Elena set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. "You all seem a little quiet tonight." The moment had arrived. Olivia felt her heart hammering against her ribs as she exchanged a look with Maya across the table. They'd agreed that Elena should start, since the affair had been her secret to carry all these years. "Victor," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk to you about something important." The change in Victor was immediate. His body language shifted from relaxed to alert, his expression becoming serious as he took in the gravity of Elena's tone and the way all three women were looking at him. "What's going on?" His voice was calm, but Olivia could hear the underlying concern. Elena's composure cracked completely. Tears began streaming down her face as she struggled to find the words to begin. "Victor, I need to tell you something that I should have told you 26 years ago." Victor's face went pale. Olivia watched him glance quickly between his wife and daughters, clearly trying to piece together what could be serious enough to warrant this level of distress. "Elena, you're scaring me. What is it?" "The girls took a DNA test," Elena managed through her tears. "Just for fun, to learn about their ancestry. But the results—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Victor looked confused rather than alarmed. "What about the results? Did they find some family secret? A relative we didn't know about?" Maya spoke up, her voice stronger than her mother's but still shaking. "Dad, the test showed that Olivia and I aren't identical twins. We're half-sisters." Victor blinked, clearly not comprehending the implications. "I don't understand. What does that mean?" Olivia felt a surge of protectiveness for her father, for this man who might or might not be her biological parent, but who had been the most constant, loving presence in her life. He looked so bewildered, so unprepared for what was coming. "It means we have the same mother but different fathers," Olivia said gently. "It means Mom was with someone else around the time we were conceived." The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't yet exploded. Olivia watched Victor's face as understanding dawned. First confusion, then shock, then a pain so deep it was physically difficult to witness. "Elena?" His voice was barely a whisper. Elena couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Victor. I'm so sorry." Victor sat back in his chair as if he'd been physically struck. His hands, which had been resting on the table, fell to his lap. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at his wife with an expression of complete devastation. How? The single word carried the weight of 26 years of marriage, of trust, of shared life. "I was lonely," Elena began, then stopped, shaking her head. "No, that's not fair to you. That's an excuse, not an explanation." She finally looked up at him, her face ravaged by tears. "I had an affair, 6 weeks, 26 years ago, when we were having problems, when you were working so much and I was so desperate to get pregnant." "With who?" "Dr. Blake Harrison, from the hospital where I worked." Victor nodded slowly, as if filing away the information. "And you think one of the girls is his daughter?" "We know one of them is. The DNA test was clear about that." "Which one?" The question that had haunted all of them for weeks hung in the air. Elena shook her head. "We don't know. The test only showed that they're half-sisters, not which father belongs to which daughter." Victor turned to look at Olivia and Maya, his eyes moving back and forth between them as if seeing them for the first time. Olivia felt exposed under his gaze, vulnerable in a way she'd never experienced before. "How long have you known?" he asked them. 3 weeks, Maya answered. "We found out 3 weeks ago." "And you didn't tell me?" It wasn't a question, and the hurt in his voice was unmistakable. Olivia felt her heart break as she recognized the same tone he'd used when Maya had hidden the car accident all those years ago. "We wanted to tell you," Olivia said quickly. "But we didn't know how. We were scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of losing you," Maya whispered. "Scared that you'd look at us differently if you knew one of us wasn't really your daughter." Victor was quiet for a long time, his gaze moving between his daughters and his wife. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but hollow. 26 years, Elena. You've been lying to me for 26 years. "I convinced myself it didn't matter," Elena said desperately. "The affair was over. You were the girl's father in every way that counted. They looked so much alike." "It didn't matter?" Victor's voice rose for the first time. "You don't think I had the right to know that one of my daughters might not be biologically mine? You don't think I had the right to know about your affair?" "I was protecting you." "You were protecting yourself." The words came out sharp and final. "You were protecting yourself from having to face the consequences of your choices." Elena flinched as if she'd been slapped, but she didn't argue. Victor turned back to Olivia and Maya. "And you two. You've known for 3 weeks and said nothing. Every phone call, every text, every Sunday dinner, you've been lying to me too." "Dad," Olivia began, but he held up a hand to stop her. "I need to think. I need to—" He stood up from the table, his movements slow and unsteady. "I can't do this right now." "Victor, please." Elena reached for his arm, but he stepped away from her touch. "Don't. Just don't." He walked toward the front door, pausing only to grab his keys from the hall table. "Dad, where are you going?" Maya called after him. "I don't know. I just need to not be here right now." The front door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded like the end of everything they'd known about their family. The 3 women sat in the dining room amid the ruins of their Sunday dinner, listening to Victor's car start and pull out of the driveway. Elena was sobbing quietly, her face buried in her hands. Maya stared at the closed front door as if willing their father to come back through it. Olivia felt numb, replaying every moment of the conversation and wondering if they could have done something differently. "I should go after him," Elena said finally. "No," Olivia said firmly. "You should let him process this. He needs space." "What if he doesn't come back?" "He'll come back," Maya said, though her voice lacked conviction. "This is his home. We're his family." "Are we?" Elena looked at her daughters with red-rimmed eyes. "After what I've done, after the lies I've told, are we still his family?" Olivia didn't have an answer to that question. None of them did. They sat in silence for another hour, cleaning up the dinner dishes with mechanical precision, each lost in their own thoughts about what would happen next. When there was nothing left to clean, Maya and Olivia prepared to leave, knowing there was nothing more they could do that evening. "Should we call him?" Maya asked as they stood on the front porch. "Tomorrow," Olivia decided. "We'll give him tonight to think, and then we'll call tomorrow." As they drove away in separate cars, both sisters carried the same fear, that they'd just witnessed the destruction of the only family they'd ever known, and that some truths were too devastating to survive, no matter how much love had existed before them. Victor didn't answer his phone the next day, or the day after that. Elena reported that he was staying at a hotel downtown, that he'd taken a leave of absence from work, that he wasn't ready to talk to any of them yet. On Thursday, Olivia got a text message from him that simply read, "Need more time. Please respect that." Maya cried when Olivia showed her the message. "We lost him, didn't we? We told him the truth, and we lost him." "We don't know that yet," Olivia said, though she was struggling with her own doubts. "Maybe he just needs to process everything." "It's been 4 days, Liv. 4 days of silence." "I know. But remember what Dr. Harrison said. Sometimes love needs time to adjust to new realities. And sometimes love isn't strong enough to survive them." The hotel room smelled like industrial disinfectant and other people's disappointments. Victor Wright sat on the edge of the scratchy comforter, staring at his wedding ring as if it were a foreign object that had mysteriously appeared on his finger. The fluorescent light above the bathroom door flickered with an irregular rhythm that matched the chaos in his chest. 26 years. 26 years of Sunday dinners and bedtime stories and scraped knees and graduation photos. 26 years of believing he knew exactly who he was. Elena's husband, Olivia, and Maya's father, a man who had built his life on the solid foundation of family and truth. Now that foundation felt like quicksand beneath his feet. He pulled out his phone for the 100th time since arriving at the hotel, scrolling through years of family photos. There was Maya at age 5, gap-toothed and grinning as she showed off a finger painting. Olivia at 16, rolling her eyes at his insistence on taking first day of school photos. Elaine A. on their 10th anniversary, laughing at something he'd said while they danced in their living room. Which moments were real? Which smiles were built on lies? The affair itself was devastating enough. The thought of Elena in another man's arms, sharing intimacies that Victor had believed belonged only to their marriage. But the deeper betrayal was the silence that had followed. Every day for 26 years, Elena had woken up knowing that one of their daughters might not be his. Every Sunday dinner, every father-daughter dance, every proud moment when someone commented on how the girls had gotten their father's eyes. All of it tainted by her secret knowledge. And the girls. His girls. Victor's throat constricted as he thought about the past 3 weeks, replaying every interaction with new and painful awareness. Maya's nervous energy during their last dinner together. Olivia's distracted responses to his questions. The way they'd exchanged glances when they thought he wasn't looking. They'd known. They'd known for 3 weeks and had sat across from him, sharing meals and casual conversation, while carrying the knowledge that could destroy everything he thought he understood about his own life. Victor stood up and walked to the narrow window, looking out at the city lights blurring through the glass. Somewhere out there, Dr. Blake Harrison was living his own life, probably unaware that he might have a daughter he'd never known about. Did the man deserve to know? Did he have any right to claim a place in Maya's life, or Olivia's life, depending on what the tests ultimately revealed? The questions multiplied in Victor's mind like a virus, each one spawning 3 more until he felt dizzy with the sheer volume of unknowns. But underneath all the confusion and hurt, one truth kept surfacing like a life preserver in a storm. He loved those girls. Olivia with her fierce determination and unwavering sense of justice. Maya with her artistic soul and the way she could make him laugh even on his worst days. He loved them completely, unconditionally, in a way that had nothing to do with shared DNA and everything to do with shared life. But was that enough? Could love survive the knowledge that it had been built on deception? His phone rang, Elena's name lighting up the screen. Victor stared at it until it went to voicemail, then immediately rang again. He let it go to voicemail a second time, then a third. When she called for the 4th time, he finally answered. "Victor, please come home." Elena's voice was thick with tears. "We need to talk about this." "I can't. Not yet. It's been 2 days. The girls are worried sick." The girls. Even now, even knowing what he knew, Elena called them the girls, as if nothing had changed. As if the revelation that one of them belonged to another man was just a minor detail to be worked through, like deciding what to have for dinner or which movie to watch. "Are they?" Victor's voice came out harsher than he'd intended. "Or are they just worried about whether I'm going to forgive them for lying to me? They were trying to protect you. They were protecting themselves, just like you've been doing for 26 years. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small and broken. "You're right. I was protecting myself. I was a coward, and I made choices that hurt everyone I love. But Victor, please don't punish the girls for my mistakes." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm trying to figure out how to move forward when everything I thought I knew about my family turns out to be wrong." "Not everything is wrong. The love is real. The memories are real. The life we've built together is built on lies. The foundation might be flawed, but the structure is still sound. Our family, our love for each other, that's still real." Victor closed his eyes, pressing the phone against his ear as if he could somehow absorb certainty through Elena's voice. But all he felt was the same overwhelming confusion that had been his constant companion since Sunday night. "I need more time," he said finally. "How much time?" "I don't know." After he hung up, Victor sat back down on the bed and tried to imagine his options. He could go home and pretend nothing had changed, slip back into the rhythm of Sunday dinners and family traditions while carrying the knowledge like a stone in his chest. He could demand to know which daughter was biologically his and which belonged to Dr. Harrison, then struggle with whether that knowledge would change how he felt about either of them. He could walk away entirely, start over somewhere else, build a new life free from the complexity of biological uncertainty and marital betrayal. None of the options felt right. None of them addressed the fundamental question that kept circling through his mind. What did it mean to be a father? Was it about genetics? About seeing your own features reflected in your child's face, knowing that your DNA lived on in their cells? Or was it about something deeper? About the choice to love and guide and support another human being, regardless of biological connection? Victor thought about his own father, a distant man who had shared Victor's DNA but little else. Then he thought about his college roommate Jake, who had adopted 3 children and loved them with a fierceness that put many biological parents to shame. Which man was more of a father? The answer seemed obvious when applied to other people's lives, but when it came to his own family, everything felt murky and complicated. On his 3rd night at the hotel, Victor drove to a 24-hour diner across town and sat in a corner booth, nursing coffee and trying to organize his thoughts. The place was nearly empty, except for a few late-shift workers and a young couple sharing pie at the counter. Their quiet conversation and occasional laughter reminded him of his early days with Elena, when they'd stay up all night talking about their dreams and plans for the future. Had she been thinking about Dr. Harrison during those conversations? Had she been comparing Victor to another man, finding him lacking in ways he'd never known about? The questions were poisonous, he realized. They led nowhere productive, only deeper into a spiral of doubt and recrimination that would consume him if he let it. What mattered wasn't what Elaine A. had been thinking 26 years ago, but what he chose to do now with the knowledge he possessed. A memory surfaced unbidden. Maya, at age 8, sobbing in his arms after a neighborhood boy had told her she was weird for preferring art class to playground games. Victor had held her until her tears stopped, then spent an hour helping her create a comic strip about a superhero who painted rainbows to defeat villains. When she'd finally smiled again, he'd felt a surge of protective love so powerful it had taken his breath away. That feeling hadn't come from shared genetics. It had come from the simple, profound connection between a parent and child. The recognition that this small person was his to love and protect and guide into the world. Another memory. Olivia, at 15, furious about some perceived injustice at school, pacing their kitchen while ranting about fairness and standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Elena had rolled her eyes and muttered something about teenage drama, but Victor had been mesmerized by his daughter's passion, her instinctive understanding that power came with responsibility. He'd known in that moment that she would grow up to change the world in small but important ways. Again, the feeling had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with recognition, seeing the person his daughter was becoming and feeling proud to be part of that journey. The pattern repeated itself as Victor sat in the diner, memory after memory flooding back, teaching both girls to drive, suffering through their terrible teenage poetry, celebrating their college acceptances, walking them down the aisle at graduation. Each moment had been precious not because of shared DNA, but because of shared experience, shared love, shared commitment to each other's well-being. By the time Victor returned to his hotel room that night, something had shifted in his chest. The anger was still there, the hurt was still raw, but underneath it all was a growing certainty about what mattered most. He was Olivia and Maya's father. Not because of genetics, but because he had chosen to be their father every day for 26 years. He had earned that title through midnight feedings and homework help and worried sleepless nights. He had claimed it through unconditional love and unwavering support, and the daily decision to put their needs before his own. No DNA test could take that away from him. No affair, no matter how devastating, could erase 26 years of fatherhood. But what about Elena? Could he forgive her for the deception that had stolen his right to make informed choices about his own life? Could he trust her again after learning that she was capable of maintaining such a fundamental lie for so long? Those questions felt harder, more complex. The betrayal cut deeper than he'd initially realized, touching not just their marriage but his very sense of self. How could he believe anything she said going forward? How could he share a bed with someone who had proven capable of such sustained deception? On his fourth night at the hotel, Victor called his brother Michael in Portland. "Jesus, Vic, it's almost midnight here. What's going on?" Victor found himself telling the whole story, the DNA test, the affair, the 3 weeks of lies from his family. Michael listened without interrupting, occasionally making soft sounds of sympathy or disbelief. "So, what are you going to do?" Michael asked when Victor finished. "I don't know. That's why I'm calling you. Do you still love them? Elena and the girls?" "Of course I still love them. That's what makes this so hard." "Then you go home. You go home and you figure out how to rebuild trust with your wife, And you hug your daughters and tell them they're still your daughters no matter what any test says. It's not that simple. It is that simple. Vic, you've been dealt a shitty hand. No question about it. But you can either let it destroy your family, or you can use it as an opportunity to build something stronger. Elena fucked up badly. But people make mistakes, even big ones. The question is whether you're going to let one mistake from 26 years ago define the rest of your life. What about trust? How do I ever trust her again? You start small, you go to counseling, you have hard conversations, you make her earn it back day by day. But Vic, you've got 2 daughters who are terrified they've lost their father. Don't punish them for their mother's mistakes. After hanging up with Michael, Victor sat in the dark hotel room and thought about punishment. Was that what he was doing? Punishing Olivia and Maya for Elena's choices? Or was he simply trying to protect himself from further hurt? The distinction mattered, because Victor had never wanted to be the kind of father who used love as a weapon, who made his children pay for adult failures. His own father had been emotionally withholding, quick to withdraw affection when displeased, and Victor had sworn to be different. Yet here he was, hiding in a hotel room while his daughters wondered if they still had a father who loved them. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Whatever Elena had done, whatever lies she had told, Olivia and Maya were victims too. They had learned a devastating truth about their family and had struggled with how to handle it. Their decision to wait 3 weeks before telling him might have been misguided, but it came from love, not malice. And now they were suffering because of his silence, his absence, his inability to separate his hurt over Elena's betrayal from his relationship with them. That was unacceptable. Whatever else happened, whatever he ultimately decided about his marriage, he would not let his daughters believe that his love for them was conditional on their genetic origins. On Friday morning, Victor checked out of the hotel, but instead of going home, he drove to his office and spent the day drafting a letter. Not to Elena, but to Olivia and Maya. He wrote draft after draft, struggling to find words that conveyed both his hurt over their deception and his unwavering love for them as his daughters. The final version was simple: Olivia and Maya, I need you to know that learning about your mother's affair and the possibility that one of you might not be my biological daughter has been devastating. Not because it changes how I feel about either of you, but because it means our family has been built on a foundation of secrets. I'm hurt that you knew for 3 weeks before telling me. I understand that you were trying to protect me, but keeping secrets, even well-intentioned ones, damages trust in ways that honesty never could. That said, I want to be absolutely clear about something. You are both my daughters. You will always be my daughters. No test result, no revelation about the past, no complexity about genetics will ever change that fact. I chose to be your father 26 years ago when you were born, and I choose to be your father today. That choice has nothing to do with DNA and everything to do with love. I need some time to work through my feelings about your mother's deception and to figure out how we move forward as a family. But I don't want you to spend another day wondering if I still love you, or if you still have a place in my heart. You do. You always will. Loved, Dad. Victor printed 2 copies of the letter and drove to each of his daughters' apartments, sliding the envelopes under their doors. Then he went home. Elena was in the kitchen when he walked in, looking older and more fragile than he'd ever seen her. She stood up from the table when she heard his key in the lock, her face cycling through hope and fear and desperate relief. Victor? We need to talk, he said, setting his overnight bag by the door. Really talk. About everything. She nodded, tears already starting to flow. Yes. Whatever you need. I need you to understand that I'm staying because I choose to stay, not because I'm trapped or because I don't have other options. I'm staying because despite everything, I still love you, and I still believe our marriage is worth fighting for. I love you too, so much. I never stopped. But I also need you to understand that trust, once broken, has to be rebuilt piece by piece. This isn't going to be easy, and it's not going to be quick. We're going to need counseling, probably for a long time. We're going to have to learn how to be honest with each other in ways we apparently never were before. Elena nodded eagerly. Whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes. And Elena? Victor's voice became stern. No more secrets. Ever. I don't care how painful the truth is. I don't care how much you think you're protecting me. No more secrets. No more secrets, she promised. They talked until dawn, Elena finally telling him everything about the affair. How it had started, why it had continued, how it had ended. She answered every question he asked, no matter how painful, and for the first time in days, Victor felt like he was hearing the complete truth. It was devastating and liberating at the same time. Over the following weeks, they began the slow work of rebuilding their marriage. Victor moved into the guest bedroom, not as punishment but as acknowledgement that physical intimacy would need to be earned back gradually. They started couples counseling with a therapist who specialized in infidelity recovery. They had dinner together every night, practicing the kind of radical honesty that their marriage had apparently been missing. Some days were better than others. Some days Victor felt like they might actually emerge from this crisis stronger than before. Other days, the hurt was so fresh and raw that he wondered if he was fooling himself about the possibility of recovery. But through it all, his relationship with Olivia and Maya remained constant. They had Sunday dinners again, though the atmosphere was more subdued than before. They talked regularly, working through their own hurt about the weeks of deception while rebuilding the easy affection that had always characterized their relationship. When Maya finally received the results showing that she was Dr. Harrison's biological daughter, Victor felt a pang of loss that surprised him with its intensity. But it was quickly followed by something stronger, a fierce protective love that had nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with the 26 years they'd shared as father and daughter. "You're still my daughter," he told her that evening, holding her as she cried in his arms. "You'll always be my daughter." "Even though I'm not really yours?" "Maya, look at me." Victor cupped her face in his hands, making sure she met his eyes. Being a father isn't about DNA. It's about showing up every day, about loving someone enough to put their needs before your own, about being the kind of person a child can count on no matter what. I've been doing that for you for 26 years. That makes you mine in every way that matters. But what about Dr. Harrison? Don't you think I should get to know him? I think you should do whatever feels right to you. If you want to build a relationship with him, I support that completely. Having more people who love you is never a bad thing. You're not threatened by him? Victor considered the question seriously. A month ago, the answer might have been different. But sitting in his living room, looking at the young woman he'd raised from infancy, he felt nothing but confidence in the bond they shared. "No," he said finally. "I'm not threatened by him. He might be your biological father, but I'm your dad. There's a difference." As the months passed, their family found a new equilibrium. It was different from before, more complex, more intentional, built on a foundation of hard-won honesty rather than assumed trust. But in some ways, it was stronger. Victor learned to appreciate the daily choice involved in loving someone, the deliberate decision to build a life together despite imperfections and past mistakes. Elena learned that love without honesty was just elaborate performance art, beautiful on the surface but ultimately hollow. And Olivia and Maya learned that the strongest families aren't the ones that never face challenges, but the ones that choose to face them together, with courage and compassion and an unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. Sometimes love isn't strong enough to survive devastating truths. But sometimes, if you're very careful and very brave and very committed to the hard work of forgiveness, it emerges from those truths transformed into something deeper and more resilient than what came before. Victor Wright discovered that being a father was both simpler and more complicated than he'd ever imagined. Simpler because it came down to a basic choice: to love unconditionally and show up consistently. More complicated because that choice had to be made new every day, in the face of uncertainty and hurt and the messy reality of human imperfection. But it was a choice he was grateful to make, every single day, for the rest of his life. The next morning, Maya called Dr. Harrison to arrange a meeting. There were conversations to be had, relationships to build, and new definitions of family to explore. But she would do all of it secure in the knowledge that some bonds are stronger than biology, and that the best parents are the ones who choose to love you every day, not just the ones who happen to share your genes. As she drove across town to meet the man who was her biological father, Maya thought about the strange journey that had brought them all to this point. A simple DNA test had unraveled 26 years of family mythology, but it had also revealed something beautiful: that love, real love, isn't determined by shared DNA. It's determined by shared experiences, by daily choices to care for each other, by the decision to call someone family and mean it. In the end, that might be the most important truth of all. And that's how a simple DNA test meant to explore family heritage ended up redefining what family actually means. What started as a fun birthday gift between twin sisters became a journey that tested every bond they thought they understood, and ultimately made those bonds stronger. Elena thought she was protecting her family by keeping her secret, but 26 years later, the truth forced them all to confront what really matters. Victor discovered that being a father isn't about genetics. It's about choosing to love someone every single day. Olivia and Maya learned that sisterhood isn't diminished by sharing 25% DNA instead of 50%. And Dr. Harrison gained daughters he never knew existed, proving that families can expand in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes the most devastating truths lead to the most authentic relationships. Sometimes it takes having your entire identity shaken to discover who you really are underneath it all. What did you think of Victor's decision to come home and fight for his family? Could you have forgiven Elena's 26-year deception? Or would the betrayal have been too much? Let me know in the comments. If this story hit you as hard as it hit me, make sure you're subscribed to Truth Bombs with notifications turned on, because we uncover life-changing family secrets like this every week. And here's the thing. If you know someone who thinks DNA determines everything about family, share this channel with them. Trust me, this story will change their perspective. Also, don't forget to tell me where you're listening from. I love seeing our Truth Bombs family growing all around the world. Until next time, remember, blood may be thicker than water, but chosen love is stronger than both. The families that survive the biggest storms are the ones willing to rebuild on a foundation of truth, forgiveness, and daily acts of love. I'll see you in the next Truth Bomb.